Dee Wallace is an internationally known healer, author, and actress best known for her portrayal of the mother in Steven Spielberg's Academy Award-winning movie, E.T. Dee heard voices as a young girl trying to survive in an alcoholic, dysfunctional home. Retreating into herself for protection, she created a connection with her inner voice and guidance. Dee's specialty is reaching into your energy and extrapolating the information that is blocking you so you can actually create what you say you want.
So Dee, you have been on an iconic movie, E.T., and here you are doing an interview today on recovery, and I'm wondering why you took the time to do this, to inspire others.
I took the time because I think it's really important to serve. And I have a lot to say about addiction and recovery. I grew up in a household where my father was an alcoholic all his life, in and out of rehab all my life. And according to my mother, I was too young, but the World War really helped. He was in the Red Cross in the World War and saw things he couldn't handle. And that led to him progressively drinking more and more and more and more during his life. Couldn't hold down a job, ended up committing suicide my senior year of high school. My younger brother, who was very high up in Homeland Security, he was an officer, served his country also, and he got this familial essential tremors, which runs in our family, if you believe that. And
from the drinking he got the tremors?
No. He got, it's a genetic, but it, Katharine Hepburn had it.
Okay,
it makes
right.
you shake.
Yes.
He couldn't hold a gun, obviously. Ended up not being able to write well, and so they had to let him go. And when they let him go, he lost his identity. He lost his worth. He lost his purpose. And he started drinking a lot. We just did an intervention in Kansas City, and he came out here and went through rehab. He's doing great.
Oh, congratulations. That's
yeah,
great.
He's one of the success stories so far. And, you know, he said, "Thank you for giving me my life back." But it was really touch and go. We literally, I mean, for a police officer to be taken out of his home by police officers.
That's very traumatic. That's
So,
PTSD time.
Yeah.
For sure.
And again, you know, he says now that he's sober, again, he remembers how much he took the hit in Katrina because he went down during Katrina and all the horrible things he saw. But his whole identity was serving and protecting. And when he lost that, he didn't have any way to create himself again.
Well, that was the precipitating event. I mean, the disease was waiting for him. He always had it.
Yeah.
It's genetic, of course. And then that event is what took him out. And that's what happened.
And I think most people don't understand that this is very, very far embedded in your brain. You literally, like breaking any habit and creating a more positive one, you have to shift your brain. You have to retrain your brain.
It has to be rewired. The neural pathways need to be rewired. So we know that addiction is the disease of thinking, faulty perceptions, sort of the isms, you know. Do you think that being in a family with a father that was an alcoholic, you took on some of those isms, some of those behaviors, those thinking diseases?
Well, it's interesting because I was on the other side. You see, I was on the, oh my God, I've got to save everybody side.
Well, I was going to say that the disease of perception is approval seeking, being overly responsible.
Oh, sure.
People pleasing.
I was the spokesperson for Child of Alcoholics for a year.
Okay.
And I think, you know, the families, we talk a lot about the addicts themselves, but we don't talk nearly as much about what the families go through. and the shame and the messages. I mean, my identification as I was growing up is we're not as good as they are, because my dad was a drunk, couldn't hold down a job. My mom had to work her whole life. We didn't have money, right? And so even though it's so weird, I was a cheerleader and I was homecoming queen, and all those experiences which should have said to me, "You're outstanding, young woman, Deanna," didn't.
Well, it was probably the disease of perfection. You were
Well,
trying to make up for something.
It was that core, I'm not good enough, right? No, I think that cheerleading and all that was because I was a joyous creative. I'm an actor, I'm a dancer. You know, all those things just gave me joy.
Right.
But no matter how much they gave me joy, there was still that core thing.
The emptiness.
Right,
inside.
of you're not as good. And so in order to make sure you're good enough, you have to save everybody, which made me a great teacher. It still makes me a great teacher. It still makes me a great healer. That's why I'm sure I play the roles I do of mothers trying to save children in E.T. and Cujo
I
and
never
all the
thought of that. That's very
films,
interesting.
you know. I know that driving force so well, that
You know that role.
that role of loving someone so much that you will give your life to save who they are.
So what have you learned about enabling and codependency throughout the years? Because I'm sure you're still not doing what you did when you were early on in terms of saving lives.
I think, first of all, what I would say to the families is don't allow yourself to move into guilt, because there's so much guilt. I couldn't do it. The first thing when I found out my dad committed suicide, I should have been able to save him. I was flipping 17 years old, right? But there's immediate guilt there that takes you over. And if you're living with a mate, those people have got to decide for themselves that they are going to help themselves.
So did you get help? Were you a member of a 12-step program like Al-Anon? Did you seek therapy? I mean, what?
Well, sure. I'm an actor. I've been through therapy all my life. Sure. And now I'm a healer. Now I do healing work because I think it's, and all my healing work is based in self-creation, that you have got to take responsibility for your own life. And I remember when I brought my brother out and we took him out, and he'd been, 6 days sober because he'd been in the hospital in Kansas City, and he was dried out that far. But you know how nebulous that is, 6 days into sobriety. And we went out to the facility, and he took my arm and he said, "Dee Dee," grown man, police officer, all in tears, welling up, and he said, "I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can do this." And I picked up the check, which is another thing I want to get into before we're gone, and I said, "I'm walking in there and I'm giving them this check. It's a non-refundable check for $10,000. Are you going to go through with it or not?"
Okay.
And he looked at me and he went, "Okay."
And this is when he first got there, or 6 days in, or?
Well, he was in the hospital 5 days in
detoxing.
Kansas City,
Yeah.
detoxing. And then I flew him right out here. His
Yeah.
wife brought him out.
He just was scared. He was in
He was
fear.
scared. Look,
How long had he been out there?
out where?
Out
One
drinking.
day, man.
No, out
I-
drinking. I mean, how long had he been
Oh,
drinking?
he'd been on a binge for 10 days, hadn't eaten,
Oh, okay.
drunk the whole, He would be dead. He would be dead if
Right.
if we hadn't intervened. But looking at what his wife went through and the guilt that she went through. You know, the last thing she said, the last thing he did as they were taking him out on the stretcher is, I hate you. I don't believe you did this to me. Which, of course, now that he's sober, he's going, oh my God, honey. Oh my God, I said that to you.
Well, they're Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That's not the person
Yeah.
he is underneath, you know.
Never the person they are.
Right.
Never,
That's
ever
what's so
the
baffling
person
about it, right?
They
is that
are.
They're two different people.
And baffling and frustrating and frightening.
Very frightening.
You know? But I think, I think people, from my experience with my father and brother, they drank to try and get their control back. But what it ultimately does is it makes you lose control of every choice you have in your life.
Exactly.
And if there's anything I learned, it's tough love. Tough love works a lot more than guilt.
Well, it's
or
supporting the
worry
recovery,
or-
but not enabling the disease. I mean,
Yeah, you can't enable them.
but you did support
And-
your brother. You know, you supported his recovery by putting him into a rehab because he asked for help. You know,
He didn't ask for help.
he didn't.
He fought help all the way. We literally did an intervention and sent the police only because we, and I don't think he had written it recently, but we found a suicide note, and that gave us the right to have the police come in.
Oh, that's great. I
And
mean,
take
not
him
great
out
that
of
he
the
was
house.
suicidal, but great that he. I
Look,
mean, it all worked
of course
out.
he's suicidal if he's been drinking for 9 days, you know, not coherent, falling down steps.
What we say,
I mean,
jails, institutions, or death. That's the choice when you get
Yeah.
to that point.
Yeah,
That's the point.
absolutely.
That's the choice. What do you think is going on today with so much addiction? Young people,
I
heroin?
think there's no place for them to go, first of all. I think the first basis of addiction is that people are under so much pressure. So these young kids, you know, you can't just do well in school. You've got to do
You have to excel.
college
Yeah.
in 8th grade. I mean, it's flippin' ridiculous, the amount of stress everybody is under or puts ourselves under in this world. And so, you know, how many housewives are on Xanax right now and Valium?
How about the elderly? We
you
have an
know?
epidemic of elderly mixing meds, mixing alcohol with medication.
Just trying to get by. We're trying to soothe ourselves because we feel like we don't have choices in this world anymore. And then when we do move into addiction, there is no place to go. I could not believe that a man who had served his country and was a lieutenant colonel in Homeland Security, his insurance would cover 4 days. Well, 4 days is barely enough to even know you're not
Right,
drinking.
it's gotten much worse. It's
And
gotten
the
much worse.
facility he was in, he said, oh my gosh, Dee, these poor people would come in and they'd just be getting a glimpse of maybe how to hold on, and their insurance would run out. And if, you know, most people, I'm blessed. I'm blessed that I'm doing a series right now, that I had $10,000 laying around, that I could help my brother. But what about the
Those
people
that
that
can't.
there is no place for them to go?
Well, we're
We have
fighting the cause
got-
at Recovery Today. If people look at last month's, I just want to mention, if they look at last month's issue, we have a number they can call to reach their congressman to make changes, because it's really, it's despicable.
It's an epidemic of not caring. And all these shootings, I think, are systemic from all of the mental health problems, a lot of them.
Right.
You
right.
know, it's a snowball that's taking over our society.
Wow.
And we have to get our power back. Individually, as a society, as a country, as a world.
Do you think that pop culture, you're in Hollywood, do you think that plays any part in this?
Yes, I think it desensitizes people, but so does the news.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're always looking for that next thrill. You know,
And we also have more instant gratification today. People can, get on their smartphone and they can, people's attention span is just
But that's the
next
point.
to nothing.
You see, I think we don't get any gratification because we're going outside of ourselves. Let's look at an app. Let's look at the iPad. They have proven already that children are losing the ability to read social signs, read energy, read nuances. They're losing the
Right.
human ability to read energy.
So what are some solutions to healing within? Because that is one of the things that you do.
Well, I created this new little teddy bear for children that has 14 very empowering statements in it.
Oh.
So that they can get a grasp very early on within
positive
themselves.
affirmations.
Yes, like I love my body. I am so loved in the world, right? And they say that back to the bear so that it's strong first-person statements that they are starting to claim.
I want one for my granddaughter.
themselves.
Where can we get
you
that?
You got it. Well, my website's IamDeeWallace.com.
Is it on there?
It's on
Okay,
the
fantastic.
home page of it, but I will send you
that
one.
could be for any age, really. I'll carry it around.
We have people that are getting it for their Alzheimer's.
Yeah, but even
parents.
ourselves to remind us. I wear bracelets with positive affirmations, but how great just to have a little teddy bear.
All the time. And also for young women, 13 and 14, who we know their self-esteem are
maybe we need to create one
very
for addicts.
challenged.
Although I guess it could work
my
for an addict.
gosh.
I think we're onto something, Dee.
That's a great idea.
think we're on
But
to
this was leading me into, you asked a question
Yeah.
about where do we start? And I think
For healing within.
Yeah, I think the first place to start, you can use the word God, you can use the word source, you can use the word universe, wants you to have everything you want. If you don't have everything you want, you're in the way.
There's blocks.
You're in the way. And we've all got to, because we're all addicted to something. Even if it's worrying, we're addicted to it.
Or like you said earlier, we could be addicted to guilt.
Yes. We have to go, this isn't working, this doesn't make me happy, this doesn't create less stress in my life. Stress is the major cause, the core cause of every disease we have in the world. So we all have got to move forward and go, I'm taking my power back. I'm taking the power of me back. And the first step is, I know I'm responsible for me. So what thoughts, what belief systems, what BS messages I got when I was little, because our brain's pretty much done by the time we're 7 years old.
So what do you think of the idea that someone will say in a meeting, hi, my name is such and such, I am an alcoholic?
I don't like it.
You don't like
I
it?
don't like it. And I know that the 12-step program has worked for millions and millions and millions of people. And if it works for you, that's what you should keep doing. But I also believe and know as a healer that how we identify ourselves is a direction of our energy, where we focus our energy.
So maybe it's better to say, I'm a recovering alcoholic or something.
I think it's better to say, I am a healthy person. I am a healthy person who makes healthy choices for my life. And I love me. And that's what I do.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to change traditions of the 12 steps, but
Look, again, we're all our highest answer. And we have to say to ourselves, what works for me? If I'm here and I want to get there, what's the best thing I can do for me to get me there?
I think this speaks to all the millenniums. Millennials. I think that there are certain things within the 12 steps that works for some millennials and doesn't work for others. And
the other program that Damon really liked, oh my goodness.
there's
I can't pull it up.
CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy.
Well, it's based on that, but it's for addiction. And they taught it at the facility he was at.
It'll come to me
and
after.
he really, really
It spoke to him.
Yeah, that spoke to him. So again,
We have all kinds of things. We have
Whatever-
organizations doing Buddhism and recovery, and that's working for a lot of people. Whatever works. I mean,
that's it.
whatever works.
Whatever works, but choose something.
Yeah.
Choose something now. Choose to choose something to get your life back into control so that you have power over yourself.
Do you think celebrities have more scrutiny in?
Sure. In anything, we have more scrutiny.
Right.
You know, I mean, every young woman going through adolescence is finding herself and making mistakes. Drew Barrymore, though, you know, she makes a mistake. They blew her up, and I mean, most young women don't get on David Letterman's
but she is amazing.
stage.
She's still sober. I mean,
yeah, and boy, did she have a family to recover from, let me tell you. So
that's interesting, a family to recover from.
Oh, you bet.
In a way, that's your story, Dee, is you had a family to recover from.
I think we all do, though. I think all of the people who have loved us tried to give us loving messages that were very, very limiting and often demeaning. But they were taught, and their parents were taught, and that's what I think is the truth of sins of the fathers. All the limitations and the incorrect teachings that have been passed down over and over and over and over, like I can give you two off the top of my head from growing up in Kansas. You only need what you need. You never need more than you need. Well, you know what? I do.
That's a message of lack. It's certainly not a
You
message
bet
of abundance.
It's a match. And we're the poor people, so we're better.
Right.
Well, so then you get out and you do a big blockbuster like E.T. and you start making money and go, and all this is very subconscious, but you go, wait, am I not a good person anymore?
Oh.
And then when you start making more money, like we were talking about before, you pull back. You find ways to pull yourself back instead of living your potential because there's money involved in it.
Yeah, there's abundance for everyone, but you're right, these limiting beliefs keep us stuck and keep us...
Like teachers. Why shouldn't teachers make as much as basketball players?
Oh, I think that all the time.
You know?
I think that all the time.
But we've got this thing connected with teachers that say, no, they're less, they're serving, so they should make less because they're servants.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Only our most important commodity.
Teachers are the most important. So if there's someone struggling out there that's watching this video right now, an addict or a family member, what might you say to them to help, conquer?
Do something now. Do something right now. And the first thing you have to do is make a choice. You have to make the choice. Otherwise, your energy can't move forward behind that choice. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to find out how, and I'm going to take the first steps. I'm going to do this by tomorrow. I'm going to do that by this weekend. You know, be tough love with yourself. Be tough love with the person you love.
That's great.
Get your life back.
So make that conscious choice right now.
Oh, you have to.
Do something different.
Or you don't move anywhere.
Do you think that there are limiting beliefs that they hold more than others, addicts and alcoholics?
Absolutely. And the biggest one is, I'm not worthy. Because if they loved who they were, they would not do that to themselves.
Yeah. Well, I'm so grateful that you are inspiring people by doing this interview to you. Really, thank you so much.
Yeah, I really wanted to serve with this. I
think it's going to make a big difference. We're reaching a lot of people that are struggling, a lot of people that are new to recovery, and a lot of families. And you are the first interview that we've had of a family member, and I think this is a really, really important because those are the ones that are for the forgotten ones sometimes.
Well, yeah, and after you try so many times like my dad, you just want to give up. You want to give up. And you have to give up the feeling part that you can do it all yourself and you can save them. You can support them in their choice.
Right.
And if they don't make the choice, then you have to love yourself enough to let them go.
That's true. What a great way to end that interview, to love them enough to let them go, to make their choice. Well, let me give you a big hug. Thank you, Dee. Thank you so much. Okay.